So we're bringing in an expert, and we have Dana Weiss with us. She is a program manager at Partner Energy with over 13 years of experience in sustainable business.
I don't know exactly how I ended up here. I think maybe a former colleague left and someone else needed to step in and take the SBA side of things. But now I'm pretty well known in this arena and happy to help and happy to be here to share experience.
Welcome to the Investor Financing Podcast, where we interview real estate investors and lenders so you can learn all the secrets to getting your projects funded and scale your portfolio. And now, your host, Bo Eckstein.
Hello, everyone. This is Bo Eckstein with the Investor Financing Podcast, and today we have a great guest. We're going to be talking about the SBA 504 Green Program. So we're bringing in an expert, and we have Dana Weiss with us. She is a program manager at Partner Energy with over 13 years of experience in sustainable design and sustainable business. Her knowledge of energy efficiency programs and technologies helps clients implement financially prudent measures that reduce resource usage and carbon footprint. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to really kind of dive in on the 504 Green Program, which is your specialty in your company. So why don't you just give a short, like a little bit more background and how you got into this field and how you kind of fell into the 504 Green niche.
Well, I won't say any of it was very planned, but I don't know that many people these days have plans to get them into where they are. But I definitely fell into this. I think that is a good word to use. I used to be a landscape architect, and during the recession, I guess the last recession, I should say, I had some time on my hands, as many people did. I went back and I got an MBA specifically in sustainable business. And then leaving that, I ended up at Partner Energy, and we focus really heavily on energy efficiency, sustainability, environmental social governance, and other things that all fall into this larger umbrella. And I don't know exactly how I ended up here. I think maybe a former colleague left and someone else needed to step in and take the SBA side of things. But now I'm pretty well known in this arena and happy to help and happy to be here to share experience.
Well, thank you very much. So the SBA 504 Green Program is the green component of it, at least, is typically you're limited to $5 million in loan proceeds on any given project and collectively. But if you hit certain matrices, you potentially could get additional financing up to $16.5 million. You're still capped at $5.5 million per project, but the normal SBA 504 caps you at $5 million. Now, granted, you can do projects that are $20 to $25 million, but there's a senior lender piece involved in that. So collectively, you can do larger transactions, but you were capped at $5 million between SBA 7A and SBA 504. So that's why I'm strongly you should go green your first project no matter what if you can, because then you have this range of opportunity for future expansion of your business and your property. So it totally makes sense. And once I learned about this program, I'm like, wow, this is eye-opening, because at first I thought it was just $5.5 million collectively, which is great. You get an extra $500,000. But you have to meet certain benchmarks. And Dana, will you kind of talk about what the benchmarks would be?
Yeah, certainly. So there are two different energy public policy goals, and those energy public policy goals is what is sort of in our side of things called green or green loans or SBA 504 green. But technically, the way the SOP writes it is an energy public policy goal. There's one that is called the 10% reduction energy public policy goal, and there's another one that's the 15% renewable energy public policy goal. So the reduction energy public policy goal, and the name should help us remember which one is which, but the reduction energy public policy goal says that in this loan that you're going after, within the proceeds, you have to reduce your total energy use as a borrower at that facility by 10%. So the baseline condition or the previous condition before you touch the property is 10% more energy use than the after condition after this loan happens. And so we see that being done through various different things. I think some of the low-hanging fruit that are really common are things like LED lighting retrofits. If you already have some things you're planning on doing, I love it when I hear someone come to me and they say, well, my HVAC units are super old, I got to replace them anyway. So I'm like, okay, well, you're going to get an energy efficiency boost out of that anyway. You might as well go green on it. In that case, I'd sort of call it like a going green in a free way, because if you're already doing the renovations, if you're already planning on doing some renovations, if you're automatically hitting that 10% just by doing the renovations you planned on it, you're going to get that 10% green anyway. So that's the reduction side of things. The renewable is the other energy public policy goal, and the target there is 15%. So we want to see 15% of our total energy use of this particular facility generated through on-site renewable energy. Most of the time we see that as solar. Sometimes we'll see it as something called solar thermal, or a hybrid of solar and solar thermal. So solar produces energy, electricity. Solar thermal actually preheats domestic hot water heating. So think about as like when you leave your hose out in your backyard and that hose gets really hot, the first bit of water comes out of it, it's like a nice warm bath. We're doing that to your hot water heating system so that your domestic hot water heating boiler or whatever's in there doesn't have to work so hard, therefore reducing your energy usage. And then lastly, there's some other ones that do exist, ground source heat pumps, which is a form of geothermal energy. And you hear about wind, you hear about hydro. They're all technically renewable energies. They're just very site specific. So I can say we rarely see them happen on property.
So as far as the reduction aspect of it, can that be specified on new construction where you're reducing by putting in certain amenities, or is that only a project that's already built and running?
So there are a lot of questions we do get. That is one of them. The only properties that are eligible for reduction are, or I should say the only deals that are eligible for reduction. You have to have an existing building because we are trying to reduce that energy. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take it back. Not only was that not a dumb question, I'm giving you the wrong answer. So let's go back a step. The pieces that make you eligible are you can do reduction if your facility or your operations are moving from one location to another. So you have to be replacing a property that you already have, renovating a property that you already have, or relocating your business to a new location. So in that replace and relocate option, there could be a new facility in there. So say I'm a dentist and I used to be in a strip mall somewhere, and now I've got enough business that I want to move to a new state-of-the-art facility. I'm going to build myself my own new construction standalone building, right? In that case, I can compare my old energy use in that strip mall to my new construction facility. So I guess in that case, yes, I was giving you the wrong answer, and you can go into a new construction facility. Same thing is, say you buy a property, you've been working in a property, it's a warehouse, right? You're running out of space in there, but the warehouse is kind of like, it's on its last leg anyway. And you're like, you know what, rather than trying to expand on this thing, I'm just going to tear the whole darn thing down and replace it. So in that case, you have a new construction, but you're comparing it to the old existing facility that you're tearing down. The real key in here is that we have to have an existing facility that the same building, same entity, borrower, whatever operations is moving either to a new location, renovating that facility where that borrower's energy is in use. So the only time I could say absolutely not is if this is your first project you've ever done with SBA or otherwise, you don't have a building, you're not relocating, you're not renovating, you can't do a reduction because we don't have a property. You're going from 0 energy use in this location to 100% energy use in this location. Math just doesn't work that way.
So I actually got a deal today, and I'm going to see if I could do it as a 504. It's an existing office building being converted into a hotel. Mm-hmm. Major renovation, so that could just be a reduction, which to hit the benchmark for reduction, catch me if I'm wrong, but to show the reduction of the 10% is far easier than having to, far probably less cost than having to put some renewable solar on if that wasn't the way to go. So would that be accurate that because they're doing a lot of renovation? I mean, this is kind of a trick question, I think, but essentially they're taking a property that they own, and then they're, higher and better uses to make it into a hotel.
Yep. From
an office, and they're doing huge, $10 million in construction.
So they're doing a reposition of a property that they already own and occupy as an office space.
Yes, but but I don't know how much they occupy. I don't know if SBA is going to have, if they need to occupy 51% of it, this is really kind of a nitty gritty one. It's more of an underwriting question.
It kind of is. This is one of those instances where I have to say you need to reach out to 504 questions at sba.gov. But generally, if you are affecting the borrower's energy use in this type of business, in this place of business, even if you were going to switch it over to a new repositioning to a new type of asset like you're talking about right now, but the borrower usually has to have their own energy use in that location. The other thing I would say, and we're getting into, again, the nitty gritty here, generally an office space has a rather low energy use per square footage, and that's what we do our comparison on. So sometimes that works to your benefit. If you're moving from a small office location to a larger office location, because we're dividing by the square footage, it really doesn't matter that you're going from a postage stamp to a warehouse, right? Or like warehouse size office, right? That doesn't necessarily matter. However, when you change the energy use intensity per square foot, which is what happens in a hotel tends, has 24-hour access, 24-hour use. People are using hot water. People are having luxurious long showers, right? Because they're in the hotel and they don't have to pay for the bills. There's a restaurant. There's all sorts of things happening. There's back of house operations. They're doing laundry, all of these higher intensity energy use. We will probably see, no matter what, the math just won't work in our favor to try to go from a office use, which tends to be a low intensity energy use, to a higher energy use, such as a hotel. But on the surface, if it weren't for that change in use there, this would work, where a borrower occupied, owned, and operated a building. Now they are going to change the use, do a full repositioning renovation. As long as that borrower is still involved in it, on the surface, they would be okay with this.
Okay, now let's talk about the renewable. Let's say it's new construction. We got to do the 15% renewable benchmark. So, I mean, what is the most common? Is solar kind of like the go-to where, and solar usually can obviously hit that benchmark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So solar usually rules the game here, mostly because, especially on existing buildings, it is one of the easiest things to add to a property. It has very little impact on the actual existing building. So a lot of people think that we're bolting, and when I say we, a lot of people think that the solar industry is actually bolting or mechanically fastening solar panels to a roof. Instead, they're taking a racking system and they're ballasting it. So they're just weighing it down, and they weigh it down with enough to make sure that there isn't issues with high winds and lift. But in that point, it's actually not puncturing your roof membrane. The only time you might see a single puncture for your roof membrane is for your interconnect, where you're bringing energy into the building. But you have those types of punctures happening already, usually on a roof, because we have other things like mechanical equipment. Sometimes we can buddy those up so that we don't really add more protrusions between your roof membrane. And so it actually ends up being the most frequently used, because is the wrong term to say, but you can kind of slap it on any building, right? Whereas if you get into other things that are interconnected into your hot water heating system, your HVAC heating system, it's a much more invasive project on an existing building. Now on a new construction building, sky's kind of the limit, right? If you bring me an empty piece of land, as long as that piece of land has those opportunities within it, like enough winds, or we can use the geothermal for some various things, then sure, let's do it. But it's really hard to retrofit after the fact for those.
Got it. So kind of circling back on this, on a reduction, you're going to go in and your group does a study, essentially. Can you kind of just give us like it doesn't have to be too detailed, just how does it work? How does the process work?
Sure. For a reduction, we want to look at your historical energy bills. First and foremost is the most telling thing on how much energy a property uses, right? So we want your electric, your natural gas, and any other purchased fuels. It's an older property. Sometimes we see things like an old oil burning furnace, so they have an oil tank. Anything else that, is bringing energy in liquid form or coal or anything, even if that were to exist, onto the property. So that's first and foremost. We want the historical energy bills. And then we will ask you a bunch of questions about your property. If we have to, we'll go out and do a site visit. But usually we don't need to. The SBA doesn't require it. And so therefore we try to do as much as we can on a desktop review, just to keep the cost down. But we want to know there is opportunity in the property. We're not going to be able to recommend an LED lighting retrofit if you already have LED lights. So we'll ask you, what type of lighting do you have? We'll ask you, how old are your HVAC systems? We'll ask you lots of questions. What type of controls do you have on your thermostats? Things like that. And when we find opportunities, we will do an analysis that will let you know how much it will cost to install this new, what we call measure, energy savings measure, what it will cost to install, what your energy savings will be over time from a kWh or, actual energy unit. And then we will also look at what your dollar savings will be. And that's really what you want to know, because we want to pick things that have the quickest payback. We would love to see all of these measures be what we consider low-hanging fruit. Let's see them pay themselves off in 7 years, 5 years, 2 years, 1 year. And then not only are you getting your benefit that you need for the energy public policy goal, but then you're just saving money on your operations. Then it's a no-brainer.
So that's awesome, actually, because, commercial properties are valued on the net operating income, right? Like what, at the end of the day, raising rents or keeping expenses lower, right? You're going to have a more valuable building. And that's essentially what you're able to do. And you're able to give feedback to the sponsor or borrower. Here's the low-hanging fruit. That's the most inexpensive way to go. And it also, has the quickest repayment. So then, in theory, year 2 or 3 or when the payback's done, you're then saving X amount of dollars per month ongoing for the rest of the term. So
exactly.
So kind of like roll this all together. It's you're getting better financing. You're getting more potential financing in the future. You're getting pretty high leverage with SBA. Plus, even though you have to do certain things, which is good for society and the environment, right? There's potential tax incentives for doing things like that, like solar and different things. You check with your local jurisdiction. I know there's some federal tax credits for residential properties, but there's some benefits there. And then you're going to simply get a report that says if it's a reduction, for example, it's going to say, okay, if you change to LED, just this alone can hit your 10% benchmark, and it's your estimated cost is going to be X amount, and your estimated repayment will be 3 years or whatever that is, and so you'll know, and it's really, you're making a wise investment, really. So there's so many more reasons to do it other than, I can get collectively 16.5 million. I mean, that's also a huge benefit, but there's actual savings on top of doing all the energy, efficiency items, which is good for the environment. Because something like, I was just reading that 63% of all the carbon is created from commercial buildings. Is that kind of
existing buildings is the thing? It's really not the new construction. We have this old building stock happening all over the entire world, and we build very few new buildings compared to the ones we're operating. So if we can just knock down a little percent here and a little percent there, we're really doing some positive things. But I will say, over my years of doing this, going back even before Partner Energy, we had clients that never wanted us to talk about sustainability. All they cared about was operating efficiency. They just want to save money, save money, save money. We don't recommend things that don't save money. And anybody doing energy efficiency, generally, we will always give you some form of payback period because we want you to be making a good financial choice. It's really not that smart to take a brand new unit, tear it off a building, throw it in the landfill, and put a more efficient building unit on that building. Like, why? There's a lot of embodied energy and a lot of other things going on there that we could talk about, but generally, I would put that in the dumb category, unless that unit is actually already broken, if it was installed incorrectly or it got hit by some form of climate or weather thing that made it broken. Like, that's different. But if you have a fully functioning brand new unit, we wouldn't say replace that. We want to replace things that have a good financial payback.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Now on the new construction or expansion, where we're looking for 15% reduction, right? We don't have a property built, so you're going to just go off the blueprints, the plans, and then you can make recommendations as far as does solar or geothermal, and you're going to do the same principle. Like, here's the best. I hate to say the words, best bang for the buck, right?
That's exactly it.
By either doing solar or geothermal or doing this or this or this, and then so it's not built. And essentially, this whatever it costs to do whatever we're going to implement is actually part of this sources and uses in the 504 template, the document that the SBA is going to look at. And these are all mortgageable expenses, so you can finance it all, and you close on your loan, and then it's finance. You can do it after the fact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
you don't.
just like with any other construction loan, whatever you construct, usually you have some form of short-term financing to handle a construction loan, and then you turn that over into an SBA loan upon completion when you get that certificate of occupancy. So the only difference here is that just like you would make sure that signs up on the building, or the canopy that you wanted to build in the back of the hotel for sun to make it pretty and for the sun, just like all those other things you might put on there. You just want to make sure that that solar system or the renewable energy system is on that building, and the same as anything else, the rest of your construction, it has to be there in place, and it'll be in the proceeds. And that 5.5 million, we talk about the initial loan cap being at 5, and then the actual $500,000 extra you get is designed in there so that you have room to do these improvements, right? Because if you came to the SBA and you had a precisely $5 million loan, they would approve it. But then if you needed to go green on that loan, you'd have no additional funds. And the SBA's portion of the loan is the part in which this is added onto. It's not really added onto the rest of the bank loan. It gets added directly into the SBA portion of your capital stack. So that's why that extra $500,000 there. A lot of usually we never need the $500,000. So sometimes the borrowers tack a few other things on there that they'd like to see done as well.
And with your experience, I mean, like different assets or different commercial property types, like maybe it's a car wash, and because there's all different things you can fund with the 504. Maybe it's an assisted living, a hotel, self-storage. So you guys have seen so many of these type of projects that you pretty much probably have an idea of what the best renewable energy source is for that property, like off the bat. So we could get some feedback from you when they're designing their construction budget, and they could kind of have an idea before actually engaging fully, right? They're going to get some kind of idea of what it's going to look like and what they need to put in for their sources and uses. But essentially, you take the blueprints, you make recommendations, you do your engineering kind of studies that you do, the engineers do. And what's the difference in how does this process slow down the SBA loan processes at all? Or, I mean, it's really only like a 2-week process, right? To get if you get all of the documents needed.
Yeah.
Pretty quick.
Generally, you want to order this at the same time you're ordering your phase ones, your resras, your wait on the appraisal, because this does impact the value of the building. So we want to have you wait a little bit on the appraisal, because if you are going to add a renewable energy system, then that will impact the appraisal. But generally, when you get all the rest of your paperwork, when you're starting to get everything you need for your CDC all together, just order it then. Like you said, we do have about a 2-week turnaround. We can do it in a little bit less. It's just a matter of let's get it started early enough. If you call me the day that you really wanted to get your application in, it's going to be trouble, because that will slow down the process. But as long as we have a little bit of runway, then there's no reason it should slow it down. And then on the approval end of it, I say this all the time, it's kind of like a really big checkbox, similar to your phase one. If you have a phase one that says you're clean, then the SBA goes, thank you for this report, and they put it in the we're all good pile, right? It's the same thing with this energy public policy report. They take a look at it. If everything's there, I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and it all looks good to them, they're going to put it in that approval pile. So it's not something that slows down your process.
Perfect. And I kind of want to point out, there's a lot of pieces with SBA. So like if you're going green, right, you got to have Dana and her team involved, or a company similar to them. But obviously she knows what she's talking about, because she's educated us today. You also have to have the right CDC. You also have to have the right senior lender. So there's multiple pieces, and kind of what I am trying to be an expert in is putting all these pieces together, right? So everything flows well. And when a new prospect comes in, you already have your team, and you already can figure this out pretty quickly, because every bank and every CDC works a little bit differently. And so you want to really make sure you're working with the right team, because some banks don't like certain asset classes, unfortunately. So you got to know what bank's going to be, especially right now, want to fund hospitality, which is very like 70% of all the hospitality lenders aren't lending right now. So navigating who likes car washes, and so there's expertise in all these fields, but having the right team is critical. Your company also, researching the website, you guys also specialize in doing the HUD green programs, the Fannie green program.
Yeah.
Does Freddie have a green program too?
They both do. Yeah.
Fannie and Freddie green. And then
taxes. I mean, honestly, if there's a word green or sustainability tag to it, we can probably help you.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Any kind of closing remarks on anything we didn't touch on the SBA green program, which we should let the listeners or viewers know?
There's one question I often get, which is what proof do I have to provide after the fact? So you've installed your renewable energy system or you've done your reduction. Do I have to prove to the SBA that I got the energy efficiency or the energy generation that I anticipated? And the answer is currently there's no requirement for that. The SBA is very understanding that we're in this kind of chicken and egg situation when we get started, where sometimes you don't have your full construction drawings yet, because why would you if you don't have a loan to do the property? Like, you may not want to go all the way down that road, right? So we know that there's a lot of things that can be massaged and changed over time. Plus, we're dealing with these really pesky things called people. And then on top of that, we have weather. And we have all these things that are quite unpredictable that we can't just put our finger on and say, no, you do what I say. So the SBA does not require you after the fact to send in your utility bills to prove that you're producing the power or saving the power after the fact. So that is one big question I get. It is not a requirement currently of the program. And then I guess if I was going to wrap anything up in a little bow, I would just say is that I would totally second what you just said. Just having the right team in place, and I'm not just talking about Partner Energy. I deal with so many different borrowers, so many different lenders. We deal with lots of different banks, CDCs, brokers, everyone. People specialize in certain things. They know all there is to know about certain items. So working with someone that can help you, point you in the right direction is super helpful. People even come to me and say, I know I need to do a green loan, but I don't have a CDC yet. That's kind of a weird situation for us to be in, because we're not really supposed to be recommending CDCs, but I will when I need to. It's better to go to someone that knows the source of all of these good, who to go to, and really get what you need done first, the right time, because there's nothing more frustrating than having to redo something because somebody didn't understand the way the SBA likes things.
Yeah. And no, you're so right. Because I knew the first time I called you and you we talked and I was like, okay, she knows what she's talking about. This is a great partner, for now and the future. And that's why I wanted you on the show to educate everybody, because knowing all these secrets, I guess you'd say that, if you're looking at doing a project and now people thought, oh, I have 2 million out with SBA on a 7A. Well, you got the green option, people. There's lots out there, and SBA right now is really kind of booming because a lot of the banks aren't making loans like they used to. So this is something you should know about, and that's why I've done a couple shows and brought in an expert on the SBA Green program here on how to get them done on the engineering side. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll do more future episodes, and hopefully Dana can introduce me to some of her colleagues so we can do some future shows on Fannie and Freddie and HUD and really dive into the advantages and the benefits, which will help everybody out there that's investing and has their own businesses and things and wants to grow. So really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Investor Financing Podcast. For show notes and useful resources, please visit investorfinancingpodcast.com. For questions or comments, email info@investorfinancingpodcast.com. If you enjoy our show, please share it with your network. Until next time.